Welcome to Adulting on the Spectrum. I'm Andrew, an autistic certified financial planner. I co-run Adulting on the Spectrum with Eileen Lamb. Hey, Eileen.
Hey everyone, in this podcast, we want to highlight the real voices of autistic adults, not just inspirational stories, but people talking about their day-to-day life. Basically, we want to give a voice to a variety of autistic people.
Today, our guest is Joy. She is an autistic writer with a particular interest in constructed language. Professionally, she is seeking employment and developing some professional skills before returning to school for creative writing.
Hi, Joy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we always ask our guests how they like to identify, and I'm talking about pronouns, but also your identity as, autistic person with autism on the spectrum. What are your preferences?
I use she, her pronouns. As for person on the spectrum, autistic, I use all of them. It really doesn't matter to me.
Us too.
What is your diagnosis story? How did that affect your life?
I was in and out of therapy. They gave me medications and things. Nothing really seemed to help. And eventually, when I was a teenager, I got misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And to me, it was like, I guess it sort of fits on the surface, but I don't think this is what's going on. I had an autistic relative, but even then I wasn't really putting together the dots. So I was referred to this therapist for the borderline personality disorder, and she looked at me and she worked with me for a while, and she pulled me aside after one session and just said, I don't really think you're autistic, or I don't really think you're borderline. I think you might be autistic. So she referred me to the neuropsych, who was working in the same facility, and had the evaluation, and surprise. It turned out I had been autistic for my entire life. And so at that point, I continued to work with this therapist, and she, with that approach, she was able to sort of teach me how to advocate for myself, help me become more aware of what my needs actually were. I really got a lot more stable. Being able to advocate for myself was probably the biggest thing, and I managed to get through college. I don't think I would have if I hadn't had the support of that therapist and the self-awareness that came from getting diagnosed.
Did you keep the borderline diagnosis, or did that go away when you were diagnosed with autism?
I think that went away.
Now you're just like, when you see her, you're focused on like working on the autism part and not the borderline. Got it.
Yeah. So, and the depression, anxiety, those are pretty constant, but.
And it is pretty common for a lot of people to be, misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder, first. And there are similarities for a reason, but they also both exist. Not everyone who's autistic, is misdiagnosed borderline, and
right. And there are plenty of people who do have both.
What did she say were the main reasons she didn't think you had borderline, and she thought you were autistic, if you can remember?
Well, with emotional dysregulation in general, I'd been diagnosed with borderline when I was 17, and I wasn't presenting with that at all by the time I got diagnosed.
Life is all about change, and you've had some major life changes recently. You got married. Can you tell us about how you made the wedding, and do you have any tips for having an autistic friendly wedding?
Keep it small. That is the main tip I have for an autistic friendly wedding. Crowds are just really, really hard, and everybody's going to want to come up and hug you and things. So if you keep it to just your family and your really close friends who you really want to be there, I guess there's the social obligation to invite literally everyone but you don't have to do that. We just had ours, and it was actually in the house. That was a funny story. That wasn't how he planned it, but his parents got COVID, so.
What was your plan originally?
We were going to have just a little small ceremony in the prayer chapel on his campus. And that would have been, more of the same, just tiny with the people who are most important to us.
That's important. Eileen, did you see the Reddit, am I the asshole for the people who paid for like a Mickey Mouse like costume person instead of having food at their wedding?
Mm-mm.
It was,
Yeah.
oh yeah. I thought you read Am I the Asshole a lot, right? You
Yeah.
missed
Yeah,
that
I did
one?
too.
That was
Yeah.
good. They spent like $6,000, like their whole food budget on like an official Mickey Mouse something, and people were mad there was no food because they
I
spent all
would
their
be
food.
mad. I would be mad.
Yeah, I think the food's important. How'd you meet your spouse?
Yeah, especially if you're gonna invite people around to mealtime. I met him online actually, through Facebook. We were in the same Facebook group together.
So what the hell is conlanging? What, I can't, if I said that right?
Conlanging?
Yes. And can you give some examples?
Sure. So conlanging is short for constructed language. A conlang is it's a language that's not, it hasn't happened organically. It's been designed by a person or a team of people. And that can be either a fictional language, like how Tolkien has the Elvish languages like Quenya and Sindarin. It can be like that, or it can be an auxiliary language to facilitate communication between people who speak other languages. Like Esperanto is an example of that, and that's one that's actually designed for people to use. I do fictional languages. I don't actually intend anybody to be speaking fluently. It's just to enhance my world building in the stories that I write mostly.
So what in your expert opinion do you think of made-up words like neurodiversity, neurodivergent, neurodiverse, especially the term lately that now everyone is neurodiverse?
Huh. I personally don't really use the term neurodivergent, neurodiverse. I don't feel like they're very useful. Just they don't give you very much information. Like by the current neurodiversity paradigm, you've got, okay, so autistic people are neurodivergent, and so are people with ADHD, and so are people with any mental illness, and so are people with chronic pain, and so are people with trauma. And so if you tell me you're neurodivergent, I don't know anything about you. And as for the distinction between neurodivergent and neurodiverse, I guess I see the argument that neurodiverse has to describe a group rather than a person. Like, I see the argument. I just think it's silly because the word doesn't mean all that much to begin with.
No, we were definitely, yeah, curious given your stand. Again, just, on language. And I would agree with you that, in general, if you try to include everybody, right, then you don't end up really, well, there needs to be descriptors. Like you said, it doesn't, it becomes almost meaningless the more people, described or under an umbrella. So you mentioned that you had some obstacles to employment.
Oh yeah.
What obstacles have you faced, and what do you think can be done about it?
Yeah, I really struggle with the interview process. I haven't found anyone who's like explicitly autistic friendly yet, and I think that's the reason I don't really get called back after interviews. I just, I get nervous. I don't like to make the eye contact. I can't really anticipate what sort of answers people are expecting of me. So it's the interview that gets me a lot of the time. Also, I struggle to pick things up, like during training. So when I do have a job, I can make mistakes at the beginning because I'm not quite grasping, things that people would pick up on pretty quickly in general. So I think the employers get frustrated and they get let go. I'm just trying to brute force my way through applications at this point as for what can be done about it. I applied to a tutoring job online recently, and I haven't heard back yet.
Yeah, I mean, struggles with employment and adapting to life changes, as you mentioned, can be difficult. However, you also believe that the key to moving forward is to avoid negativity online that many of us can get sucked into.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I think it's, there's nothing wrong with venting online about how, about when you find things difficult, but it's easy to get in this sort of, I don't know, can I call it a feedback loop?
Yeah.
Where you complain about how hard it is and people just validate, oh yeah, it's super hard. And you get into this mindset that the world is never going to change. You're never going to get a job because this is just how everything is. And I found myself getting into that mindset. Like I didn't even want to apply for jobs for a while because I just thought, there's no way they're going to want to hire someone like me just because I get in this. I don't know. You look online and you kind of can reinforce your own negative thoughts if you're not careful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's the problem of many groups. It's like an echo chamber, whether it's like just an opinion or feelings, and it gets really bad.
And many times it isn't even on purpose. It's people want to be validating, but they validate the wrong thing.
Yeah, that's very true.
I'll invalidate everything you ever say, Eileen. Don't worry. I'll always be there to argue with you. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes. A little bit of, I don't even know if that's sarcasm. That might be mostly true. Like half sarcasm, maybe, Eileen. So,
yeah, no, I mean it's needed.
But it's good. It's good to be challenged.
Yes. So you were going to college not just as an autistic person, but during COVID-19. And can you tell us what that was like? I mean, again, talk about change and uncertainty. There must have been quite a bit.
Oh man, it was sudden. That March of 2020, I went to my brother's wedding in a different state, and the place was packed. It was a huge wedding. I remember dancing, to Taylor Swift songs or whatever. And we're like, life doesn't get any better than this. And then as soon as we came back home, it was, we have this pandemic now, and we went straight to lockdown pretty much. My classes were suspended because our spring break got extended. They didn't know what to do about the classes, and then we just went online for the rest of the semester. It was like I left campus and then just didn't go back. And I remember just the contrast between that wedding and just nothing. I went and I lived really close to my campus. So I would go walking just to give myself a semblance of routine. I would walk around campus to I wouldn't go into the buildings, but to where my classes used to be, just completely deserted. It was just me. Because, I would have fallen apart if I wasn't out there going somewhere like I had been before. I just had to hang on. It was really hard. Just the starkness of it is going to stay with me forever. We had the COVID cases in my home state were not as severe as elsewhere in the nation. And so our governor decided to open things up a little sooner than some other states. And that was a bit of a controversial decision. But regardless, Zoom in-person classes the next semester. So there was sort of that return to normalcy, but it was just a little, everyone was on edge. It just wasn't the same. And I ended up feeling like I lost half of my college experience because of COVID-19 and all the measures that had to be taken. It really was a rotten time. And on top of that, I lost 3 family members, not of COVID, but around that time, just in quick succession. So it was a really hard time. I think it would be hard for anyone, but on top of that, I just, we're autistic, we resist change.
I know that you like video games. Did that help you cope in any way?
Oh yeah, I played Stardew Valley all throughout the pandemic. That really helped, just to get away from it all. Stardew Valley, it's this little, it's a farming simulator RPG thing. It's very cute, very wholesome. It's not like serious gaming at all, but especially during that time, you just need something light and fluffy to get you through life.
I like video games like Animal Crossing and Pokémon.
Yeah, Stardew's right in that genre along with Animal Crossing.
No, that's cool. I need to check it out. I've never heard of the game Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky, but do you know about it?
Yes, that is my all-time favorite video game. It's this really obscure Pokemon game. I've only met like 2 other people who have ever played it. It is wonderful. I think primarily the gameplay, you describe it as a roguelike. I think that is how you would classify it. But the story is quite good and the music is excellent.
So what do you do in the game, like compared to the other Pokemon games?
Sure. So a difference is you wake up on a beach at the beginning of the game and discover that you have turned into a Pokemon, but you have no memory.
Oh.
So you are exploring dungeons with your Pokemon partner. There aren't any other humans in the game. Just
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. What console do you play it on? Nintendo or what is it?
It was a Nintendo DS game, yeah.
Oh, it was a DS game. Oh, that's cool. I have a DS. I need to check
I think
it out.
they released it. I think they released it for Wii U as well as a digital download, but I never had a Wii, so.
Or let alone a Wii U. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one of my employees and friends actually does know the game, and he does have it for DS. So there are 3 people. So
Woohoo!
he plays a lot of Pokemon. So I asked him yesterday, I'm like, do you know this game? He's like, yeah, I have it for DS. So
yeah, it's so good. I think it had some mixed critical reviews, but I don't let that sway me.
What did you like so much about it?
Mostly the story. I thought it was excellent. I replayed it recently, actually, with my husband because he had never heard of it, and the story holds up pretty well. Like, I was impressed as a kid, but kids are easily impressed. I really thought it held up.
That's awesome. All Pokemon game hold up very well. Like,
right?
You're playing Pokemon like Let's Go, which is basically the newer version of what it used to be when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah, I think the first Pokemon game I played was Yellow.
Yeah, I love them. Pikachu. Mine was Red.
Yeah.
Did I tell you, Eileen, ever that that's how I bonded with my wife, Jessica? Like,
yeah.
Over a video game that I lied and I said I played. I hadn't played it yet. It was Portal. It was Portal. Portal 2 had just came out, and I did end up playing both of them, but I pretended I liked it, more than I did.
Those are pretty fun.
Yeah. So, what did you study in college, and why?
So I was initially a music education major, but I changed it over to English pretty quickly. I had a particularly good British literature class that I just adored. I was captivated by Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and just Middle English in general kind of kickstarted my interest in linguistics and literature as well. So I switched my major over. It's a little bit frustrating, I think, because people expect autistic people to be really into math and engineering and that kind of thing. And I just never was. I was more the creative type. But then I never quite felt fully at home in the English world either, because there's just so much subjectivity in especially literary criticism. I always want there to be a meaning of the text, and there's this, there's death of the author, there's you can't say that the text is what the author meant it to mean, and there's just a whole lot of interpretation, and that always really frustrated me as someone who, I can tend a little towards black and white thinking a lot of the time, and I just want there to be the same objectivity that maybe there is in music theory, which is what I did before, and so that's kind of why I gravitated towards the systems of conlanging rather than literary criticism, because I like things they're not necessarily perfectly regular, but they're systematic. And to me, that is where the beauty of language lies. And that's why I majored in English to begin with.
Did you know that there is a college scholarship for speaking Klingon?
I didn't know that, but that is awesome. I wonder if there's one for Quenya.
I don't know. I give presentations like sometimes on like college planning and people getting ready, and like weird scholarships, and that's always the one that like stuck with me that I like to mention, is that if you can speak Klingon, it's like a $500,000 scholarship, but still.
That's awesome.
Maybe you should start the one for
Klingon
the
is
other
fun.
language that you mentioned that I can't repeat. So
yeah, Quenya is Tolkien's one of his two. Well, he had more than two, I think. One of Tolkien's Elvish languages.
No, it's so cool. Yeah. It's funny what you said about like how people expect autistic people to like math and engineering, and it was the same. I was always into like languages. Obviously my first language is French, and yeah, I've never been into math or science and all of that. And I don't know why that cliche of it is sticking so much to the idea of people have autism, because it's not true for so many people. I mean, then you have people like Andrew, but
but there's this idea that we can't be creative, and I wonder if that's why I was missed as a child, just because I was in my own imaginary land all the time. And they look for things like the lining up toys and quote unquote inappropriate play. That was actually my brother. He would line things up, and he has his PhD. Does he have his PhD yet? He's getting his PhD in mathematics. Somehow he doesn't have a diagnosis, but
well, okay.
But I wonder if this is a male-female thing. If just women tend to be more imaginative, even if they are autistic. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be true, because all of the people I know who are autistic and creative are more, they're all women actually, and then there are the people into math who are boys. Might be a gender thing.
And then I know autistic women who are into math too, but
a bit more rare. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure the criteria for diagnosis are gonna change over the years. They're already kind of picking up on those things, like how girls have less restrictive interest and all of that, or less obvious. I guess what I read that really stuck with me is that girls, their special interests are more what would be considered normal, so
or
like
socially acceptable. I like the horse girls.
So that's how it can be missed, like, oh, she really likes it, but who doesn't like horses? Or like I was really into soccer, when like boys it's more like maybe like trends or something a bit more unusual, so it's more obvious,
right? I think for girls sometimes it's boy bands or things that are not necessarily abnormal for a teenage girl.
Yeah, totally.
For me it was Pokemon when I was little, and then when I was in high school, I was obsessed with sonnets, the poetic form, and I wrote 300 of them in my 4 years of high school. And I think people just saw that as me being nerdy and quirky, and maybe a little bit obsessive. It doesn't seem like the same thing as the boys who really like trains, for instance. But it definitely was. It was pretty rigid, pretty restricted.
Yeah, looking back, I mean, I feel like it's so much easier to see now that we can look back on these things. But I'm gonna ask you some quick fire questions. So basically, it's just like quick questions, and you tell me the first answer that comes to your mind. Okay. What is your favorite memory as a child?
Favorite memory as a child? Going to the pool with my dad.
Oh, that's so sweet. What's your favorite Pokemon?
Pikachu. That's everyone's favorite Pokemon.
Yeah, I like Eevee. Like, it's so cute.
I do like Eevee. I like all of them.
Yeah. What's your favorite drink?
Water.
Fair enough. What's your favorite portrayal of autism in the media?
It's an unpopular opinion, but I do like Sean from The Good Doctor.
I've only seen a few episodes, but yeah, I've heard it's like on the cliche side.
It is, but I like him.
What's your dream job? What was your dream job as a child? Oh, do you have a dream job now?
Dream job as a child. I actually wanted to be a software engineer, like my brother. Dream job now, I would love to compose music for video games.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great speaking with you. Do you have a social media anywhere you want people to find you online?
I tend to keep to myself online. I do have a writing page, but I never post to it. So, yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.